The moment the door slammed behind me, the sound echoed like a gunshot in my chest. My heartbeat raced, a drum of disbelief and humiliation. I stumbled backward, tripping over the threshold, and my suitcase hit the ground with a sickening crack. The zipper split, spilling the remnants of my life clothes, letters, trinkets, all scattering across the cold tiles of the hallway. I dropped to my knees, trying to salvage what little I could, my fingers trembling as I picked up each item, afraid that this was the first of many things that would be taken from me. "You're what?" kicked out, I whispered to myself, my voice barely audible over the hammering in my chest. I had lived in this house for as long as I could remember, under the care of people I trusted. And yet, in one cruel sweep, everything I had known was gone. The betrayal was not sudden. It had been simmering beneath polite smiles and forced dinners, but the reality hit me like ice water. I was unwanted, unworthy, disposable. As I tried to gather the last of my scattered possessions, a stranger's voice cut through the fog of my despair. "Your father is waiting for you," he said, leaning casually against the side of the street, his eyes unreadable but strangely sympathetic. I froze, my stomach lurched, twisting itself into knots of confusion and disbelief. What? I stammered, my voice cracking. "No, he's dead. He's been dead for years." The man shrugged, as if my panic were of little consequence. "People lie. Sometimes they tell you someone is gone when they're really just hidden." His words lingered in the air like smoke, curling around my brain and searing it with doubt. I sank to the curb, my suitcase half broken beside me, my hands gripping a shirt I had thrown onto the pile. The cold seeped through my coat, but it was nothing compared to the chill in my chest. Memories flashed, unbidden birthday cards from a man I never truly knew, stories of a father who was a hero, a shadowy figure in my earliest recollections. Had all of it been a lie? Had everyone I loved been lying to me for years? My heart ached with more than sorrow. It ached with confusion and betrayal. The people I had called family, the ones who had promised protection, love, and guidance, had abandoned me without a second thought. Their cruelty was not just in action, but in silence, in the years of whispered half-truths and carefully constructed facades. Every lie suddenly seemed to point to one thing: I had been kept in the dark for reasons I could not yet comprehend. I pressed my forehead against the cold metal of my suitcase, wishing desperately that I could rewind time, that I could find some way to make the walls of this house remember the laughter, shared meals, the life that had once been mine. But the walls were silent, indifferent, and the echo of the slammed door was the only answer I received. The stranger's words replayed themselves in my mind, over and over, each repetition slicing deeper. "Your father is waiting for you." Waiting? Where? Why now? And why had everyone lied about his death? The questions burned like fire, but there was no immediate answer, only the unbearable weight of uncertainty pressing against my chest. I stood slowly, dusting off the shattered pieces of my life, each movement deliberate. I could feel the anger rising, coiling tightly like a spring ready to snap. There was betrayal here, yes, but there was also a path forward, a path I hadn't considered before. If my father was alive, if the truth was hidden in plain sight, then the world I had known had been built on lies. And lies, I realized with bitter clarity, were meant to be torn apart. With a shaky breath, I lifted my broken suitcase. Its frame was bent, its wheels cracked, but it was still mine. And if it could carry the fragments of my life forward, then maybe I could carry the fragments of my resolve too. I didn't yet understand how or why or what awaited me. But one thing was certain: the story had just begun. I wandered through the city streets, my suitcase dragging unevenly behind me, its broken wheels scraping against the cracked pavement. The stranger's words echoed relentlessly in my mind. "Your father is waiting for you, waiting." Where, how? I had no answers. only the gnawing suspicion that my life had been nothing but a carefully constructed lie. Every memory, every reassurance of his death suddenly felt like a calculated deception. I found a quiet cafe tucked between two tall buildings and sank into a corner booth. My hands shook as I pored over the few belongings I had salvaged. Among the scattered papers and letters, I found an old photograph I had never noticed before. My father, younger, smiling warmly at a man whose face I didn't recognize. Behind them, a faintly familiar building loomed, and I felt a pang of déjà vu. I didn't recognize the place immediately, but my gut told me it was a clue. For hours, I sifted through my memories and the fragments of my past, piecing together the moments I had ignored. The phone calls my mother had ended abruptly, the envelopes she hid, the occasional mention of business trips that never seemed to include me. Each small detail, once easily dismissed, now screamed at me. Someone had worked hard to erase him from my life, but why? I decided I needed answers. I started asking questions discreetly, slipping into old bookstores, contacting archivists, even looking through local public records. Every conversation was a minefield. Some people refused to speak, shaking their heads nervously, as if the very act of telling me would put them in danger. Others offered cryptic hints. He left to protect you, he's closer than you think, but don't trust everyone you knew. Then I found a name that made my blood run cold. A woman, an old family friend, who had once been close to my mother. She agreed to meet me, her eyes flickering with fear as she handed me a tattered envelope. Inside were letters and photographs carefully preserved, and a single note written in my father's handwriting. If you are reading this, then they have lied to you. I am alive, but I cannot come to you yet. Seek the truth cautiously and trust only yourself. I dropped the envelope, my hands trembling. Alive, my father was alive. Every lie, every betrayal, every whispered secret suddenly made sense. The anger inside me surged sharp and hot, coiling around my heart like a serpent. I wanted to scream, to demand why, to shake the people who had hidden this from me for so long. But beneath the anger, there was something else, a flicker of hope, fragile yet persistent. If my father was out there, alive, then the betrayal wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning of my journey. I would find him, I would understand why they had lied, and I would make them answer for the pain they had caused. Night fell, and the streets emptied around me. The city felt different now, a place of shadows and secrets, where every passerby could be a friend or a foe. I clutched the envelope to my chest, feeling the weight of my father's words settle into my bones. Somewhere out there, he was waiting, and I would not stop until I uncovered the truth. Before I left the cafe, I paused to make a decision. I would follow the breadcrumbs, no matter how twisted the trail. I would confront every hidden truth, even if it tore my world apart again. And I would be ready to face whatever lay ahead, ready to reclaim my life from the people who had tried to erase me. The first step was clear. Find the places in the photographs, follow the hints in the letters, and piece together the puzzle of the father I had been told was dead. The path would be dangerous, but the thought of finally seeing him again, of understanding everything that had been hidden from me, gave me a fire I had never felt before. The search for truth had begun, and I would not stop until it was found. The next morning, I woke with a fire burning in my chest. Sleep had barely touched me, but for once, exhaustion didn't feel like defeat. It felt like preparation. The letters, the photographs, the cryptic words from strangers, they were pieces of a puzzle I was determined to solve. And the first piece I needed was the person who had cast me out, the one whose betrayal had sparked this entire journey. I returned to the house I had been kicked out of, careful to move through the shadows. The street was quiet, the morning light soft against the walls of my old life. My broken suitcase rattled behind me, but it no longer felt like a symbol of weakness. It was a reminder of everything I had survived, and everything I was about to reclaim. I didn't knock. I didn't announce myself. I watched from the corner as the person responsible moved through the house, completely unaware that I had returned. The familiarity of their movements, the way they adjusted the curtains, the careless way they sipped their coffee made my stomach churn. This person who had smiled at me every day and then thrown me into the street without hesitation had underestimated me. That was their first mistake. I had spent the last few days planning. I had learned their routines, discovered their vulnerabilities, and quietly gathered the knowledge I would need. Revenge, I realized, didn't need to be violent to be devastating. Sometimes, truth was the sharpest blade. And I held the knife now. I stepped inside when the moment was right, my presence announced only by the creak of the floorboards. They froze, eyes widening in shock. They started, but the words faltered. I let the silence stretch, letting the fear sink in. Yes, I said softly, each word deliberate. It's me, the one you thought you could erase. They tried to regain control, their voice rising in anger, but I interrupted. You know why I'm here. You know why I'm not scared anymore. You hid the truth from me. You lied, and now it's time for the truth to come out. I watched as color drained from their face. The power dynamic had shifted. The person who had thrown me out, who had believed themselves untouchable, now trembled under the weight of what they had done. I began to reveal what I had discovered, the lies, the secrets, the ways they had manipulated every aspect of my life to cover for their greed and control. With every word, I could see their composure crumble. Then I delivered the final blow, not a scream, not a strike, but evidence. Photographs, letters, receipts, documents I had painstakingly collected. Each one told a story of betrayal so complete that it left no room for denial. They tried to speak to justify, but it was too late. The truth was a mirror they could no longer hide behind. I left them there, trembling, powerless. The fire in my chest was not just anger, it was triumph. I had taken the first step in reclaiming my life, proving that their betrayal had not broken me. If anything, it had sharpened me, made me more aware, more capable, more dangerous. As I walked away, suitcase in hand, I realized the confrontation was not the end. It was only the beginning. My father awaited, alive, and the secrets he had kept from me were now within reach. The path forward was still dangerous, full of shadows and uncertainty, but I was ready. I was no longer the person who had knelt on the cold tiles of a hallway, shattered and betrayed. I was someone else entirely, someone who had learned the power of truth, the thrill of control, and the satisfaction of sweet, calculated revenge. The world had underestimated me. That would be my advantage. The city felt different now, alive with possibilities rather than shadows. I had faced betrayal, unearthed secrets, and confronted the person who had tried to erase me. Each step had brought me closer to a truth I had once believed impossible. My father was alive, and the past I had thought defined me was only a story waiting to be rewritten. I arrived at the address I had tracked through letters and old acquaintances. The house was modest, tucked away behind a row of trees that swayed gently in the afternoon wind. My heart pounded as I approached, suitcase dragging behind me, now symbolic not of brokenness but of resilience. I paused at the door, steadying my breath, feeling the weight of everything that had led me here. When the door opened, I saw him, my father. He looked older than the photographs suggested, lines of worry etched into his face, eyes shadowed with secrets and unspoken pain. And yet, when he smiled, there was recognition, warmth, and something I had longed for my entire life, belonging. "Dad," I whispered, my voice breaking. The word felt strange, heavy, and yet freeing all at once. He stepped forward, hesitant, as though unsure whether I would embrace him or turn away. "I never wanted you to believe I was gone," he said softly. "I had no choice. I had to protect you. From them, from the lies, from everything that would have hurt you." Tears blurred my vision as anger and relief collided inside me. Protect me. You left me to be betrayed, thrown out, humiliated, broken. My voice trembled with the weight of years spent in deception. He flinched but nodded. I know, and I regret it every day, but I had to wait until the truth could be revealed safely. You've grown stronger, smarter, braver. I am proud of you. I studied his face, searching for the man behind the words, and in that moment, I realized something vital. Revenge wasn't just about punishing the guilty. It was about reclaiming your power, restoring your sense of self, and deciding what kind of person you wanted to be. I told him everything about the person who had betrayed me, the confrontation, the evidence I had collected, and how I had reclaimed control of my life. He listened silently, pride and sorrow flickering across his face. When I finished, he placed a steady hand on my shoulder. You've done what I could not. You've shown them that lies and betrayal have consequences. You've made justice yours without losing yourself in hate. We sat together for hours, unraveling the years of silence and hidden truths. My father shared stories I had never known, truths about his disappearance and the dangers that had forced him into hiding. Every revelation added depth to the man I thought I had lost and to the life I could now embrace. And yet, the story of revenge wasn't complete. The person who had cast me out, humiliated me, had been dealt with in ways I had orchestrated, carefully exposed to the world, stripped of power, and forced to confront the pain they had caused. I didn't celebrate cruelty, I celebrated justice, and that satisfaction, subtle and sweet, was more intoxicating than any fleeting victory. Finally, as the sun dipped low in the sky, I repaired my broken suitcase, stitching the tears and aligning the wheels. It was symbolic, a vessel for the life I was reclaiming, the strength I had built, and the journey I had survived. My father and I stepped outside together, ready to face a world that no longer had the power to define us. I realized then that betrayal, heartbreak, and loss had not destroyed me. They had forged me. The fire inside me was no longer fueled by rage alone, but by resilience, hope, and the profound knowledge that I could overcome anything. And as we walked forward, side by side, suitcase in hand, I knew one immutable truth. Some stories end with heartbreak, some with revenge. But mine ended with power, with love, and with the sweet satisfaction of reclaiming everything I thought I had lost.